Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 88.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to bringing you useful information on custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques, bringing you the custom club fitting experience of your life and lower scores always. Well, happy Eclipse Day. I hope that many of you listeners are located in the path of the eclipse and get to watch it live. We are here in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and it's going to be fun. A few months ago, Tom Wishon said some things on our AGCP custom club fitting forum that made me realize that I needed to bring him back again to do a podcast interview with me. And so here again is Tom Wishon from Tom Wishon Golf, sharing some great information to help average golfers play their best golf. Hello, this is Tony Wright with the Golf Improvement Podcast, and today it's a pleasure to speak with Tom Wishon. And I'm not sure what we get to call you now, Tom, but we could call you the elder statesman of true custom club fitting. How about that for now?
Ooh,
not elder. We won't say elder statesman, no, but the world's best representative. How about that?
Yeah, no, I'll just say for all the listeners out there who are around my age of seasoned senior player, we all agree that you just blink your eyes and you can't believe that many pages on the calendar have been turned.
Boy,
and for all the listeners out there who are in the millennial or the Gen X, groups, I kid you not, your day will come to where you'll look back and say, wow, I couldn't believe it got here that fast.
Yeah, it's something. I'm 68. I think that's close around your age, isn't it? Nah, we won't talk about that.
I'm sorry?
We'll leave it. I said I'm 68,
okay.
So that's kind of up there a little bit too. So, and I feel it every once in a while, that's for sure. Well, Tom, this podcast was generated really by the first question that we're going to talk about, because that listeners I don't think know, you still participate quite a lot on our AGCP forum and give us some of your insights that sometimes we don't have. But this discussion kind of came up, and it was, for a golfer who's considering being custom fit for clubs and they're kind of just starting out in golf, a lot of times I think they may think, I really shouldn't be fit for clubs. And maybe the answer is, of all the times you ought to be fit for clubs, maybe that's one of the biggest ones. So how about you talk about your perspectives on that question a bit?
It's a good point. This is one I'm very, very critical of. And what I'm talking about is the standard specifications that all the big golf companies have put on their golf clubs that are sold off the rack. All the great technology that's out there today with club head engineering, club head design, with, much more forgiving club heads and high COR, all the way from drivers to fairway woods, hybrids, and even high COR irons. All that engineering on the club head is great, but it goes to waste, when those golf club heads are built to specifications that make it more difficult to play with. And I would bet the farm on this, that if today's club head technology was matched with the standard specifications of 1980 and before, there'd be a lot of golfers who would have bought off the rack clubs and would be playing better than they're playing with now.
Yeah,
having bought modern clubs off the rack,
shorter and more loft and all those kind of things, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's the drivers and the fairway woods are much too long, and especially for beginners. So that's a big problem right there. The other side of the coin is the irons have continually gone down in loft, to where you have a situation that the 5-iron of today is the 3-iron of 25 years ago. And there's no question, lower loft is harder to hit, get airborne, and fly and carry the ball to its maximum distance. So if you're talking about, as a beginner, I wouldn't buy any clubs yet. I would, this is one where maybe you need to pay a visit to, the local custom club maker and see if he can alter a standard set so that the woods are much shorter, and so that there aren't any irons that have lofts under 30 degrees, and then go out and, and start to learn the game with that type of I'll say, custom standard set. Once you get to a point where you are consistently getting the ball airborne and your misses are generally in kind of one direction, okay, at that point now you can go out and be custom fit and you're going to be fine with that. But, boy, do not go out and buy just some standard set of golf clubs off the rack to go learn the game, because the woods are going to be too long and you're going to end up with a lot of irons that are too low in loft for a beginner to be able to hit, and play well with.
And I think it's also really important from, the golf professional standpoint, because it does make their job better if they, if they're working with somebody that, that has clubs that put them in an athletic position, right? instead of sort of fighting that.
I mean, this is when, if there are any golf professionals in the audience, you need to go find your local club maker and have him alter some standard sets for you to have to use for your beginners to take lessons with. So that if there's a driver, it's not longer than 42 or 43 inches. The fairway wood, the longest fairway wood, maybe 42, 41 and a half inches. Again, no irons to teach a beginner with that are under 30 degrees in loft. And if you can, in giving lessons, it's such a benefit for every golfer, even a beginner, to be starting out the game with grips that fit his or her hands. So if you could real quickly, slide on new grips, that fit your students' hands. If they have big hands, give them bigger grips, with this. It just makes learning the game and learning the swing fundamentals that much easier to do.
Yeah. So and it was funny when you talked about that on the forum. It just hit me that we often don't think about that. Many of us club fitters. It was one of the first. I will be honest with you. It was one of the first times I just simply thought about that. And it's such a no-brainer once you do. So.
Yeah, and Tony, if there are any club makers that are listening to your podcast here, guys, get off your duff and go see the golf pros around there and make a pitch to them for altering some standard sets they have to be what we're talking about, much shorter with the woods, no low loft irons, and convince the golf professional, use these when you're teaching beginners, or people who are really very poorly skilled, with that, because there's nothing worse than having the golf club get in the way of the golfer being able to learn proper swing characteristics. And believe me, that is happening today.
Oh yeah. It's not a great thing, and we're trying to grow the game, so sure want to get that right. Well, the second thing I wanted to talk a bit about with you today is one of those things that's just prevalent, right? The sort of obsession with distance, and
yeah,
I'd like to hear your perspectives on how that can and cannot help golfers, because it's great to be able to get the most you can out of something, but when should distance be a big priority for them? When should maybe they kind of back off and not worry about it so much and just try to get a little more consistency and better dispersion, things like that?
Yeah, this whole thing with distance in the game is really a double-edged sword. How many drivers have been sold because a golfer goes out, tries it out, and hits 1 out of 12 shots really good. And that one that he hit really good and long all of a sudden is like a drug, and he wants it every time. And so he buys the driver on hope, the hope that he'll figure out some way to hit 2 or 3, instead of just 1. And it's really difficult because there's a really old adage that it just rings true in custom club fitting, and that is the longer the club and the lower the loft, the harder it is to hit. No question about that. So, the obsession with distance, the big companies know this. They know full well that the majority of average golfers, if they try out their new 46-inch long driver and they hit one shot out of 12 decent, they're going to buy it because the lure of distance is so great. It's out there. I guess the only thing I can say is that, hopefully the less experienced golfers will run into a friend with a lot of experience in the game who can somehow knock sense into their head and say, look, consistency, how often you hit it in the middle of the club face, and keeping it in between the fence posts is going to be the most important thing you're going to pursue to have fun, with this game. Beating it out there, 275 yards, okay, that's great. But if the other 8 shots before you did that one, cost you 3 lost balls, and a bunch more wasted shots, the game's not any fun, doing it that way. So, and nowadays, since we and you guys and the club makers have been preaching shorter driver lengths to golfers for 15 years now or more, there are a number of people out there who have taken the leap, and gone with a much shorter driver and found, hey, I really don't lose all that much distance because I'm hitting it on the middle of and I'm hitting it solid more often. That. It's true. You mishit a driver, even today's forgiving drivers. You mishit the middle of the face by half or 3/4 of an inch, you can kiss 5% of your distance goodbye. Yeah. And that's a fairly significant amount of yardage if you're used to hitting at 250, out there. So, no question about it. The fact that the big companies are to blame, because they know the distance sells, and it puts them in a situation where, honest to gosh, they're pursuing money more than they are pursuing the well-being of their customers. What does it say when for over 10 years, the average driver length on the PGA Tour has been 44.5 inches, while the average standard driver length on drivers sold off the rack to all golfers is an inch to an inch and a half longer than that? Seriously? Yeah. The tour pros go out there and play with a shorter length driver because they know if they play with one that's as long as what you buy off the rack, they're not going to be as successful. They can't keep it in play. And yet these are some of the, the best players in the world that know that shorter is better with the driver. So, as a golfer who doesn't know a whole lot about equipment, do not buy a driver standard off the rack. Go find a custom club maker, and be fit not just with the shorter length, but then the proper loft, proper face angle for directional help, and all the proper weighting and grip size and shaft and all that, for it.
And one of the great things right now too, one of the good things in golf is playing forward tees, right? Playing the tees that match your game, and so. A lot of the people that I play with, they are having an absolute ball because where I get to play, they'll play up, and again, that doesn't have to become such an issue of huge driver distance and stuff. They can hit the ball pretty well. So and certainly for them, the same thing. 70-year-old, 75-year-old person playing a 46-inch driver doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. Yeah. What?
Yeah, because
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying, for those people who are interested, and as we get older, we lose club head speed, and as we lose club head speed, it is very hard to accept those changes in our game that come with it. I know I'm going through that right now, with myself, but I can tell you, the only golfers who are going to be able to be successful with longer length drivers are going to be golfers who, number one, have a smooth rhythmic, swing tempo. Number two, inside out to square swing path. Number three, a late unhinging of the wrist cock angle on the downswing. And number four, good golf athletic ability. The ability to change your tempo or to draw or fade a shot at will. If you can do those four things, smooth tempo, inside out to square path, late release, and good golf athletic ability, have at it. Go after that 46 or even 47-inch driver, to get more club head speed. But if you don't have those four swing characteristics, don't mess with it. Don't go with anything that's longer than 44, and in most cases, stick with 43.5, and you're going to be much, much more successful and consistent when you play the game.
I did a 43.5-inch fitting today, and he was, when we found the right shaft and setup, almost every shot was 150 smash.
Yeah.
it was great. That's pretty crazy.
That brings smiles to both the customer and the club maker.
Oh yeah. I didn't put this into questions, but it's one thing I've often thought about. Our sport is so interesting in many ways, right? Because if we were runners, if we were running the 4-minute mile or whatever, and, the times keep going down, but in golf, we just don't allow ourselves to have the scores go down. And, everybody gets to be more athletic, they're stronger and all that. I often wonder if all this obsession with trying to keep scoring kind of the same maybe doesn't help as much as we think. I mean, what would be wrong with some people shooting low 60s all the time if that's what their game is, right? I don't know. I'm curious your perspectives on that.
Well, if you're talking about, the big tournament circuits out there, I think we're basically just kind of talking that it's the USGA who's got it stuck in their heads that they want par to be the winning score in the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
PGA of America doesn't seem to care about that in the PGA Championship, and most certainly the Royal NA doesn't care about that in the Open Championship, and neither does Augusta National when it comes to the Masters. So it just seems to be the USGA that has it stuck in their head that if the winner of their U.S. Open, scores 10 under par, that's a failure for them. It's their right, it's their tournament, it's their perspective, and it's only one tournament, with that. And, and at the end of the day, if that's the way they want to conduct their events, great, more power to them, and that's the one there is. But good competition can be had when you have 5 or 6 guys all at 13 under par, trying to beat each other's brains out, making more birdies.
Yeah.
As opposed to having a handful of guys at even par or one over, with that. And I think viewership on TV, there's so many casual golf viewers out there who get a bigger kick out of seeing, the iron shot stuck a foot from the hole, or, the 30-foot putt that goes in for eagle, or the chip in. Those are great things. What isn't so great for holding your attention span is watching guys hit it 50 yards out of 6-inch rough, or, pulling back and hitting a hybrid, on a par 4 hole because the fairway's only 25 yards wide, playing defensive golf. That doesn't really fill the seats, so to speak, at least in my opinion. But,
right.
It's each have their opinion, and that's the way it is. But at any rate, with regard to fitting, a good club fitter, as you well know, because you do it on a daily basis, you fit the golfer to have golf clubs that will allow him to hit it as far as his club head speed will allow, but with decent control and accuracy. You do that, and usually, you're going to start playing better golf.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tom, almost the last question today. It seems like to me, and I know to many of our friends that are, in what I call the true custom club fitting world, that almost everybody wants to say that they're doing custom fitting these days. And it's not to say that there are not many people. There aren't people who are really good, in probably some of the stores and things like that. But, what's a golfer to do, right? In terms of trying to make decisions about where to go and what's the truth for them in terms of what they ought to do.
Yeah, well, the facts of life about the golf club business go like this. 4 out of the 5 largest golf equipment companies are publicly traded, or they are part of a publicly traded larger corporation. So that means there's a lot more pressure for selling golf clubs. They have pressures to make forecasts and to keep increasing the sales of the golf clubs so that the stock price doesn't crash out there. And that means that the companies are going to do things which are not necessarily that good for the golfer out there. And one of these has been the standard business model of the golf club industry has been to go out and, create your super duper club head technology, and then you put it all together with standard specs for a standard length, standard loft, standard lie angle, standard weighting, standard stock shafts, standard size grips, everything's standard. But on the other hand, golfers are anything but standard when you pull them all together. Golfers differ quite a bit in their size, their strength, their athletic ability, and especially their swing characteristics. So to look at this standard off-the-rack business model from the giant golf club companies, you look at it and say, how could a population of golfers who are so different from each other in size, strength, athletic ability, and swing characteristics, how could all those golfers hope to play to the best of their ability, all using standard-made golf clubs? It doesn't work that way, because golf is a stick-hits-ball game. And I'll ask a lot of the people out there, many of you probably played baseball or softball. Now, in the baseball or softball bat business, if all the bats were 33 inches long, and 33 ounces, with the same handle diameter, how many guys are going to go out there and hit their best, have their best batting average or make the most RBIs or home runs? It ain't going to happen, because baseball players learned a long time ago that they need to get a bat that has the right length, the right weight, and the right handle diameter. And those are the key fitting specifications for a bat. Okay, in golf, it doesn't work that way, because there are something like 12 key fitting specs, and there are 14 clubs in the bag. And if you go through all the different options, there's absolutely no way that the golf companies could make pre-built sets to all the different kinds of standard specs and then expect the retailers to all stock them in their stores times 6 or 8 different brands.
Yeah,
it doesn't work. So in an industry where the big companies want to make as much money as possible, the only way they can do that is to sell standard-made clubs. And those clubs don't perform the best for all golfers, and especially when you tack onto that standard specs like 46-inch long driver lengths or 22-degree loft 5-irons. Those things make the game harder to play. So, this is why golfers really, if they want to get the most out of taking lessons, if they want to get the most out of their money they pay to play this game, you've got to go in and see somebody who knows what they're doing to be able to identify and fit all 12 key fitting specifications for all 14 clubs in the bag. And that does not happen when a golfer goes into a big box retail store or a golf course pro shop, and because he expects to be custom fit. The people who work in the big box stores and the golf professionals are not trained to know how to fit all 12 key specifications on all 14 clubs in the bag. They don't get that proper training. The PGA of America's club fitting training is pathetic, I'm sorry to say. And it not only that, but you try to order, you can't order the big, all 12 custom specs, fit to you on big company clubs. See, their clubs are made to be built to standard specifications, so they don't have ways to really alter, the weighting of the heads all the time properly to fit you when different lengths and different shaft weights are used for you. Now with the adjustable hosel sleeve, what this has done is just for the convenience of the golf company. It's reduced the amount of inventory they have to purchase and sell. And you have eliminated face angle as a fitting specification with the adjustable hosel sleeve out there today. You look online at the custom specifications listed by the big golf club companies, they don't even recognize that face angle exists for a driver. And I'm talking about making a club so when you sole it and you sit it on the ground, it points a little left in what we call a hook face as a corrective factor for those who slice the ball. Or the opposite side, it can be made with an open face angle to help correct for those who hook the ball, through swing errors with this. It doesn't exist, with this. So, the point being is that, and this is quite obvious, that golf is a game that to be able to play your best, you have to have the clubs fit you and your size, strength, athletic ability, and your swing characteristics. And you're not going to get that the way it should be done by shopping in a big box store or a golf course pro shop. The only place you're going to find that is with really experienced, very well-trained, independent, custom club makers. And these are the guys, and a handful of women do it too, who have spent years studying the technology to know how to analyze the golfer and his swing to be able to pick the right length, the right lofts, the right lie angles, the right face angles, the right shaft weight, the right shaft flex, the right shaft bend profile, the right total weight for the clubs, the right head weight feel or swing weight, the right set makeup, and the right grip and grip size. And those are the key specs that need to be fit on every single one of the clubs in your bag, not just one or two, and not just two or three specs, which is what you get when you go into a big box store for a so-called custom fitting.
What questions? I mean, if somebody is going there, I guess that your answer probably is just don't go there.
For what?
Don't go to any big box store, I guess is really the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sorry to be very critical, but I was vice president of Golfsmith International for quite a number of years, and this was during the time that Golfsmith launched their big giant retail chain business.
Yeah.
So I saw it. I watched it happen, and the people who sell the clubs on the floor, they didn't get the training. I remember I tried and I fought really hard to put in training programs for the retail store people, and I was told by the company owners, if they'll come in on their own time and they're unpaid, yeah, you can train them. Well, now how many people who are being paid $10 an hour to sell golf clubs in a store are going to come in on their own dime to be trained? That ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So as a result, it drove me nuts, that the company I worked for was just like all the other big box stores where unless the person on their own took it upon themselves to really study and know about golf equipment, the golfers who walked in there to shop were not going to get a quality shopping experience. It was a slam bam, thank you, man, get the credit card, make the sale, and get me the next customer, because there's not enough profit margin at the retail stores for golf club sales, and so it has to be done in volume. And that means that the $10 an hour salespeople in there can't spend more than 25 minutes to sell a set of golf clubs, or else their boss is going to be on their tails, trying to hurry them up so they can get to the next customer to make the next sale and and bring money in. It's really sad, but the current business model for selling golf clubs through big box retail stores, it's horrible. It is the worst thing in the world for a golfer. And when you think about that, how much is a golfer spending? We're not talking about even going in and buying a washer or a dryer. You're talking about over $1,000, for a set of golf clubs. And that's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And it would, and if, therefore, as a golfer, you want to get the best bang for your buck with golf clubs, you got to go to an independent custom club maker. Where it's one-on-one, you and the fitter, all 12 specs fit for all 14 clubs in the bag, and then individually built, hand-built to have those. And the bottom line, the clubs from the custom club maker are not going to be really probably any more expensive than what you would have paid if you walked into a big box store to buy a heavily marketed brand name model off the rack.
Well, and that sure has changed in the environment we're in now. We didn't talk about things like PXG and things like that, and I know they've got some good people that are fitting, but boy, some of the pricing models have changed, haven't they?
Yeah.
For clubs. That's a story for another time, I think. I guess I will say one final thing. I can't remember a fitting I've had where, I had a eureka moment immediately and it was done in 20 minutes. It just doesn't happen. I guess you wish it could, right? That would be fun. But if it was that easy, right?
The closest place that happens is with the average golfer. And this is, a final point I want to be sure to get across, and that's the fact that, in general, people who shoot between 80 and 100 for 18 holes will get the most tangible benefit from a full fitting of any golfer out there. And that's because the people who shoot between 80 and 100, They're not as gifted, okay? They can't adapt their swing to clubs that don't fit. And their swings are so often controlled by the clubs that they play with. So if the club's too long, it forces them more into an over-the-top, outside-in, early release move with that, because it's putting too much stress on the swing. So when it comes down to it, it's the average guy who's going to benefit more from, full specs custom fitting, because he's not as good of an athlete. He's not as good, with neuromuscular control to change his swing to adapt to a club that might be too long or too heavy or too light, from that standpoint. So, we hear this all the time, where the average player says, "Oh, I'll take a few lessons, and when I get good enough, then I'll go get custom fit." Well, it isn't like that. If you go get custom fit, then if you decide to take lessons, you can adapt to the swing changes more easily with that, or automatically right off the bat. You go out there with a 43.5-inch driver where you had a 46-inch driver, guarantee you're going to hit more shots more consistently. Or if you have a set makeup that throws the 3-iron, the 4-iron, and the 5-iron into the closet and replaces them with high loft woods or hybrids that are shorter, now you've got more clubs that you can hit more consistently than before, for this. Not to mention, having the right weight. So if you're strong with a really fast tempo, we'll get you into a little bit heavier clubs to match that tempo. If you're not as strong, you're weaker, and you got a really smooth rhythmic tempo, we're probably going to get you into something that's going to be lighter, so it's not as much of a struggle or effort to swing the club. Up and down the list it goes with this. But the bottom line is, if you're an average golfer and you think you're not good enough to be custom fit, boom. It's exactly the opposite.
And you're hurting your ability to have fun, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you really are.
Yeah. Well, I was going to let you have the final word, but I think you did. That was it, wasn't it? Unless you do have anything else you want to add.
I'm like the old-style jukebox. You put a quarter in me, and you're going to get your money's worth.
Well, I knew we would get to 30 minutes on this interview, so I didn't have any doubt about it. Well, Tom, thanks a lot. I know you're enjoying your... I'm going to guess I think it's pretty close to at least semi-retirement, right? You deserve it, You've put in the time, but you also continue to have the passion with golfers in mind, okay? So I will put Go ahead.
No, I'm saying I'm one of the very lucky ones because, a long time ago, I discovered something that I just was lit up and passionate about, and that was to learn and know more about how golf clubs perform than anybody else out there, and that's been my whole life since my early 20s, was to answer all the questions for why does a golf club do this, or why doesn't it do this, or how does it do that, or, in all the different ways. And it took a long time, but I did get to a point where I know a whole lot, and, as I watched the golf equipment industry and saw how it worked, it all was in a situation where I just wanted to try and share whatever I learned with whoever was interested in knowing, or to try and help people when they don't know very much about this stuff, so that they get more bang for their club dollar, spending bucks out there.
Yeah. Well, and it's great that you're continuing to help all of us, through the AGCP, and we appreciate that. I'm going to put links. The Wishon website is still live, and Diamond Golf International is where your designs are, and a lot of us custom fitters still buy them from there, and those will be in the show notes. Thank you for taking the time today, and it was a great and fun interview, Tom. Appreciate it, and hang in for just a minute.
Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate the invite.
www.gameimprovementgolf.com.
Tom, thanks for everything that you continue to do, not only for true custom club fitters, but for all golfers who want to play their best golf and shoot lower scores. I've included show note links to the Tom Wishon Golf Technology website and also to the Diamond Golf International website, where Tom's clubhead designs can now be purchased. On a personal note today, before I end, this Saturday I'm going to be rappelling down a 12-story building in Knoxville for a great cause. If you want to learn a little bit more about why I'm doing that, email me and I'll let you know. Well, that's it for today. In 2 weeks, I'm extremely excited that Jamie Donaldson, the first golf coach in Europe who was trained in the aim point green reading process, and who is also aim point coach for some of the top golfers in the world, will share some of his knowledge to help all of us improve our green reading skills and make more putts. See you in 2 weeks.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com